Zane and the Hurricane, A Story of Katrina, by Rodman Philbrick. Chapter 20. What shines in the fierce sunlight? We don't actually knock on doors because Mr. True is worried about what he calls possible booby traps, so he calls out to each house from the street, "Anybody home? Can we get some help?" It's pretty obvious that Mr. True doesn't feel comfortable in this neighborhood, or for that matter, begging for help from strangers who won't show their faces, so he stands in the street a respectful distance from each house, cupping his hands to his mouth and calling out. When no one responds, we move on, house after house, greeted by silence and sheets of plywood nailed over windows like closed eyelids, blind to everything. Sometimes we hear motors running from behind the houses. Generators. That means people, right? But none are willing to show themselves, not to us. It's a lonely feeling, thinking that some of the owners might be in there, hiding behind the plywood. Not that we know for sure, although Bandy barks at certain houses as if he can sense life within. More than once I see something flit in the shadows behind the shutters, as if a person moved out of the light, away from our sight. "Folks scared," Mr. True mutters under his breath, like he's trying to convince himself. "Why else they ignore us? A man and a child presented no threat to none of them. Some places, if you ignore the torn-up shrubbery scattered around like dirty confetti, and a few trees leaning over to touch the soggy ground, you wouldn't know that there had been a hurricane or a flood. The houses in this part of the city are mostly untouched. Big, sturdy homes built on higher ground, with maybe some leaves clatted into the intricate trim of front porches like spinach stuck in their front teeth. We're most of the way down the block, and the houses keep getting bigger and grander and more closed up, some with steel hurricane shutters pulled down like shades, when Bandy stops in his track and starts growling deep in his throat. What he scents, Mr. True wants to know. A moment later we humans hear it too, the low thrum of an approaching helicopter. I expect to see a flash of orange and white from the Coast Guard, but that's not what passes overhead. Blasting hot wind from above, this helicopter is smaller, darker, unmarked. After it slips over the horizon, we hear the engines throttle down, the whine of the blades quickly subsiding. I don't know much about helicopters, but it sure sounds like it landed somewhere in the neighborhood. "Might be they come to save us," Melvina suggests. "Might be," says Mr. True doubtfully. Melvina starts to run off in the direction of the helicopter, and Mr. True hollers at her to hold up. She turns back, looking hurt at the sound of his raised voice. "Mercy, child," he says, much softer. "Can't keep up with you running like that." He's been limping pretty bad since we got out of the canoe, wincing with every step. Whatever he did to his ankle or foot, it appears to be getting worse. Not that he'll talk about it, except to say it ain't nothing to worry about. Melvina takes his hand, and for a moment she looks younger than she is. "I gonna stay close by you," she promises. He takes a deep breath. We check on this. If nothing come of it, we get back to the canoe, find a safe place to shelter, draw or not. That the plan. Is that a good plan, True? He grins and shakes his head. You got me all confused, darling. Beast so agreeable. He turns to me. "Zane Dupree, you keep hold of that dog. Some folks round here will shoot a stray dog if they see it off the leash." "Yes, sir." So we keep together, Mr. True limping and not wanting any help, not even a shoulder to lean on. The girl with the wild hair holding his hand, and me with my dog on a leash of borrowed rope. All of us simmering in the unbearable heat, tormented by endless mosquitoes, and desperate for a helping hand. Doesn't make sense that no one is willing to help us. Folks were helping survivors get out of Grammy's drowned neighborhood, like me and Bandy got rescued from the attic, okay? Why not here, where the storm barely did any damage? Is there something about big houses with fancy trim that makes people hide from those in need? In the distance we hear sharp, echoing bangs that could be gunshots. Melvina shrinks against Mr. True, and he groans as the weight comes down on his foot. "Pay no heed," he says, as more shots go off like muffled firecrackers. "Long ways gone, none to do with us." We trudge along, Bandy tugging eagerly and me holding him back. Fearful of those gunshots, if they are gunshots. But what else makes that noise? So what are they shooting? Out there in the broad daylight. Maybe firing to signal they need help. Best not to dwell on it, Mr. True says. Maybe Malvina has it right. Maybe the helicopter has come to rescue us. It's not like we need so much. Shelter from the sun, water to drink, and a phone to call my mother. Oh, and a doctor to fix Mr. True's foot. Truth is, right now I'll settle for the phone. This may sound kind of weak, but I miss my mom something awful. We gone far enough, he says, heaving a sigh. Time to turn back. Malvina drops his hand and skitters ahead, trying to see around a pile of thick-leaved branches that have been piled in the middle of the street like a green barricade. There it is, she exclaimed. Come on, True, lean on me. We almost here. There. I pull down a branch and take a look. At first, I'm not really sure what I'm seeing, because the way the helicopter shines in the fierce sunlight, it might be a giant insect. Glittering dragonfly perched in the garden next to a white, 3-story house. A house so big it has tall columns holding up the roof. A mansion, like you see on TV. On one side of the mansions are enormous moss-covered trees, untouched by the storm, and on the other a wide, lush garden that has been flattened either by Katrina or the downdraft from the helicopter itself. The blades of the helicopter are still turning, and the elegant machine whines like a dog begging to be let off its leash. Me and Malvina want to run into the garden, see if they have room on the helicopter, but Mr. True holds us back. And a good thing, too, because a moment later men swarm from the house, men in matching green polo shirts and baggy camel pants. Men wearing mirrored sunglasses and carrying shotguns. The guns swing in our direction until all you can see is the black holes at the end of the long barrels. Hands up, down on your knees, now! Have you ever tried raising your hands and dropping your knees at the same time? Not the easiest thing to do in the world, and Mr. True has the most trouble getting down. He's trying to lower himself without hurting his foot when one of the shotgun men plants a shiny black combat boot on his chest and shoves him to the ground. You leave him alone! Screams Malvina, launching herself at the man with the boots. He peels her off the way you'd flick at a bothersome bug and hands her to me. I can feel her heart slamming in her chest and the tightness of her anger. Keep hold of this little hellion, he commands. As a legally contracted security force, we have the right to defend this property from the predations of looters, using whatever force deemed necessary. Meaning we can shoot you dead. And that's exactly what's going to happen unless you answer my questions. You, the light-skinned boy, look me in the eyes, son. No hemming and hawing, no lies. Are we clear? You lie, and I'll know. This is my lie detector, right here. He smiles, an evil kind of smile, touches the end of the shotgun barrel to my chin, and says very softly, Bang! You lied. Chapter 21. Like an animal crawling away. It's not like I've never seen a rifle before. In New Hampshire, lots of kids have deer rifles and shotguns, and they go hunting with their fathers and uncles, shooting deer and ducks and like that, but I've never had a shotgun aimed at me. Certainly not by a man who sounds like he's looking for an excuse to pull the trigger. I should be deathly afraid, and part of me is, but mostly it doesn't seem quite real. Like I'm in my own personal movie playing the victim, and any minute the director is going to yell, Cut! Bandy believes it, though. He's flat on his belly, whimpering. To be truthful, I'm more afraid they'll shoot my dog than me. Grown men don't shoot unarmed boys, right? Right? Who else is with you? The man demands, prodding me with a shotgun. Simple question, boy. You scouting for a posse or your crew or whatever you people call 'em? The question doesn't make any sense. All I can do is shake my head in confusion. From the ground, Mr. True says, Just us, sir. We alone. I'm talking to the boy. Mr. True insists on speaking, despite the shotgun aimed at my head. We found him in an attic. Him and that little dog. Boy from up north. He don't know nothing about nobody in Nolans. No gang, no posse, no crew, nothing like that. Is that a fact? The man looks down the long gun into my eyes, his forefinger caressing the trigger guard. Boss, another man says, he's only a boy. Boy can murder and steal just like a man. They're unarmed. Uh-huh. Maybe they hid their weapons in the bushes. We checked, boss. Nothing. Boss man lowers the shotgun. With a smirk on his face, he turns to Mr. True. So you're just a sad old man with 2 orphan chillin', that's your story? The way he says chillin'. He's obviously making fun of Mr. True, shakes his head and looks away. Melvina pipes up defiant. Hey, mister, why you so mean? She asks. Must be something wrong in your brain to make you so mean. Boss man ignores her. Here's the question, he says, concentrating on me and the old man. The moment of truth, are you all as ignorant as you look? You expect me to believe you don't know what's going on out there? On his knees, Mr. True says, we know what the flood done. That's what we trying to escape from. Uh-huh, and you just so happen to escape into a wealthy parish, rich homes from thugs to rob and steal? Mr. True shakes his head. Ain't no thug, ain't no thief. People on the rampage, looting whatever they can carry, stealing from honest folk. You don't know anything about that? No, sir. We ain't steal from nobody, Melvina says hotly. Melvina, you hush now, the old man says, looking at the guns. This on me. People are resentful of what others might have, so they rise up when the opportunity presents itself, in this case a flood. Mr. True lifts his chin. We're not looters, he says. We're looking for help is all. Everybody know True, Melvina says, protesting. Trudell Manning ain't no thief. He a famous musician man. Boss man rolls his eyes. A musician. God help us. I suppose that explains the hat. Another man approaches. Boss, we about done here? Pilot doesn't want to stay any longer if he can help it. Cargo loaded? One more rug, the man says, but it might put us over the weight limit. Mr. True hears this and says in disbelief, rugs? That what this all about? Rescuing some kind of rugs? Boss man says, for your information, the owner has a very valuable collection of oriental carpets. Hired our service to protect them from the likes of you. Behind him, the men in green polo shirts drag a rolled-up carpet from the big house and carry out to the waiting helicopter. Leave the rug and take these children, Mr. True suggests. So they can sabotage the helicopter? Is that your plan? No ways. I'm asking you, sir, to do the right thing. Never mind. Long's you do right by these children. Boss man says, our mission is to secure these premises and remove the inventoried carpets. Mission accomplished. Contract fulfilled. We will not be deterred from our purpose. Your kind want a free ride in our shiny helicopter? Apply elsewhere. The old man sighs and shakes his head in disgust. Boss man doesn't like his attitude. He uses the end of his shotgun to push the hat from Mr. True's head. Then he steps on it, crunching the hat under his boot heel. Mr. True freezes, not reacting, except to warn us with his eyes. Don't do nothing. Keep you still. We all of us, including Bandy, keep still. Grinning at our feared boss man says, a squad will remain on the premises, fully armed and ready to respond with deadly force. Is that understood? We nod silently. He turns and marches to the waiting helicopter. As the big machine takes off, the downdraft from the screaming blades blows Mr. True's top hat over the flattened grass, like an animal crawling away with a broken spine.